to get started. We'll walk through some more flowers. Again, this is the cool flowers or hardy annual class. We're going to get into more specifics on each flower now, and hopefully you guys will have some more questions. When they gave me 2 hours for this, I was like, it's a long time to, especially because I'm not supposed to talk about tunnels yet. So, okay, let's get back to where we talked about those. Okay, campanula or Canterbury bells. This is another one that is in the muddy area of being a perennial. There's varieties that are annual, and then there's varieties that are perennials, and they are really hardy perennials. I grow the annual varieties, and they get taller than me, and their stems are just covered in bells. You can see they're they're so beautiful. And I mostly grow them. They are a little bit of a one-hit wonder for us because it gets too hot basically.
Wait, where you at?
I'm in Oklahoma.
Oh.
Sorry, I should reintroduce myself. Yes,
Sorry.
my flower farm is in Oklahoma. We're zone, I don't know, 7-ish. It's pretty, it gets warm fast. But we're about to get a foot of snow, so you never know.
What part of Oklahoma?
We, between Tulsa and Oklahoma City, where Bristow is the closest town to us. So yeah, I grew up on Fisher Farm with, if you know Luke and Sean, ever seems like everybody knows Luke and Shantae. But they do market gardening, veg stuff. So they kind of kicked off my flower farming, I would say, because I worked for Luke, I don't know, all through high school, all through undergrad, all through vet school even, during the summers. So I kind of had a good starting point because I knew how to set up all the irrigation, I knew how to build a bed and all those kinds of things. So, okay, so campanula. The main reason that I grow them is because they always bloom for Mother's Day. And I have 2 florists that I sell to that use only local flowers for Mother's Day. That's their tagline. And so I've grown the white. There's white, pink, this lavender color. There's a dark purple color. I think that's the main. There's a dark pink and a light pink. But this lavender color and the light pink are the most popular. White is super popular for weddings, and so I always grow a little bit, but it's kind of hit or miss if it's going to hit when somebody has a white wedding. But if you can get the perennial varieties, they're not as tall, so they're a lot better for your home gardens. You can even still cut on them. But these are the Champion series, I believe. And they're to be treated like an annual. They will bloom the first year, and they get giant. Like I said, they get taller than me. I think I have a picture later of the row of them in the tunnel. But so they are, the reason that they always bloom for Mother's Day is they are day length sensitive. So what triggers them to bloom is the length of the days. So they're always, similar to a perennial, always going to bloom at that time of year. So I always grow tons of them because I can sell every stem. Even if the florists don't want them, I can put just a few stems into a bunch and sell it to the men that forgot Mother's Day. I tried to stick to flowers that I have grown outside those first few years. So I grew these one of my first few years, that year that it was 2 weeks that we talked about earlier of really cold weather. I didn't cover them at all that year, and they grew and bloomed and were beautiful. They're super hardy. The only thing is the deer really love them. So I think that's the hardest thing with hardy annuals. There's not a lot of other things for the deer to eat. So if you're in an area like us, that there's woods, there's open field, there's nobody else around, they can be a real pest. Okay, so that's one of my favorites. But it's also kind of like you baby it for a long time before you get flowers. Okay, delphinium. This is another one that it's like, it can be a perennial, but it's also, I treat it as an annual because it's gonna die off for me. But it's extremely hardy. Like they grow them up in Maine and stuff like that and outside. There's different varieties. I grow this variety, it's called Belladonna, and there's this blue color and a white color. Most of the delphinium that you see is more of like a big column of flowers, and they're really beautiful, and those are a lot of times the perennial ones. But they're not as useful for my purpose, but if you're gonna put it in your garden, they're really great. And I do grow some of the candle and Pacific Jards. Sorry, I was just telling you, my allergies are so bad. Yeah, so this variety's real airy. The flowers aren't super condensed. And if you come to the florist class, we talk a lot about like what florists like. They can use the big column ones, but these work in their smaller arrangements a lot better. So really, with delphinium, it would again be like the white campanula. Like if you have those big spikes and they need them for that weekend, great. If not, then you have these big spike flowers that you can't do anything with. But these you can put into just like a handheld bouquet even. And one plant you can get tons of stems from. I'm trying to remember, I think I have a picture, sorry, of them in the greenhouse. Okay. This is my husband's computer and I don't know how to use it. I don't know. So this is my delphinium in this row. You could tell, like, it's as tall as these stakes, but I've kept it cut down so much that you can't really see a ton of color. But they get really tall, and they're just very, like, wispy flowers. They're not all compact on the stick. So those are, it's just different varieties. But again, they're super hardy. Starting them from seed, I've never had success starting them from seed. Besides like one or two, and it's just not worth your time. Again, I have heard of people that like put them in the freezer for 2 weeks, and then they'll soak them for 2 days, and then maybe you'll get a few. But this is one that I definitely get plugs. They know how to do it. They're not super expensive. It's worth your time because this is a flower that will attract your customer. Like that, it's just something that's unique. Especially I feel like in our area because we don't have delphinium just like everywhere. So if you can get it to grow, it's a real conversation starter.
Do you mow those down?
Yes. And these I replant every year. So you can get them to perennialize, but in this area it gets too hot and they will die off. I've tried every year. I try to just cut them down and see if I can get at least another fall flush maybe, but they never make it. They don't like it when it gets 100 degrees, even under shade cloth. Okay, dianthus. There's lots of different varieties of dianthus, and this is one that I debate on growing every year. And I always grow a little bit because I like it. Carnations fall in the dianthus family, and carnations are one of those flowers that is mostly grown in other countries now. Most of that has moved out of the States. But these are the Chabad carnations. They're like original, and I love them. I don't know why, they're like one of my favorites. They smell so good. They're so easy to grow, and they're just like this fun little thing to put into bouquets. So I grow quite a few of these. There's yellow, like this light yellow color, there's a light pink, a white, and then there's like an orange peakity and a pink peakity. Yeah, and these can be a little bit day-length sensitive as well, but they're really hardy. These are a different kind, they're called Sweet William, and this is the the Amazon series. They're super bright colors. And the way I plant them, they almost always bloom for Mother's Day as well. So they're like just a different kind of flower to mix with those bells. And they smell really good. You can get a light pink. This is like a, I don't know, like a cranberry color. It's actually very pink in person. It's really pretty. And then there's a purple. So they're really beautiful. And the reason I don't grow a lot of them is because they're colorful, and my florists don't like colorful things. So it just depends on your market. When I was doing a lot of market bouquets, we used a lot of this. And it's also kind of I should say, the Sweet William is a one-hit wonder. It blooms, and you might get a few little blooms off the side. The carnations will keep blooming for quite a while, till it gets hot, really, or till you get tired of picking them, because they're a little bit like a bachelor bud, and they just go. So when I was doing a lot of market bouquets, I succession plant Sweet William outside even. So just like I would do it in the fall, and then I do another succession in the spring, and that spreads it out just enough to. Some places can have it even in the summer. We get too hot, but it's very hardy. The deer also love it. Okay, feverfew or Matricaria, I think is how you say it. This one's a fun one to grow. It's a really great filler. It's also like can fall in that perennial zone. For me, it's actually somewhat perennialized. There's always a chunk of them that survive. There's tons of different varieties. Again, it's going to depend on your market, what colors or whatever you want to grow, but these get very tall, at least the ones that I grow. I'm sure there's probably garden varieties, but these get tall as well, so they're going to need some support to stay up. You can kind of see, this is my dog sitting here, and it's like as tall as her. And I obviously didn't support these, so they're falling over. But these two are my favorite varieties to grow because chamomile is a really popular flower in the floral world, but it does not grow well in our area. I have tried so many times, it just gets too hot. It's a cool weather plant. So this one kind of looks like chamomile. It's called Vegmo Single, and this one is Tetra White. But I really love these yellow ones too. They're a lot of fun, but they're super hardy. The deer actually don't like these because they have a weird scent. It is not my favorite flower to cut. They don't smell great. They actually kind of smell like dog poop to me. Like when you strip the leaves off, they just don't smell good. But they're a perfect filler for a bouquet. Yeah, and they make a great chamomile substitute, which chamomile smells good, so it's a little bit tricky. Okay, foxglove. This is probably one of my most popular flowers for the florists, and the flower that gets the most, if I ever take it to when I would take it to market, people are just so fascinated by them. They're like little fairy garden house. That's what they say. They're like little fairy houses. But they have all these little bells, and this peach color is super popular. It really is. When they're all blooming in the tunnel, it is very magical. They are just beautiful. But they can be pretty tricky. They're hard. I shouldn't say they're hard to start seeds, but it's hard to keep them alive. The seed will start, but then they're very slow growing, and so it's really easy for them to be too moist. So this is another one. I usually start half of these from seed, and then I always get a couple backup trays because if I don't have it, my florists will be very sad. But this is one that can be a biennial, an annual, or a perennial. And it's something that you'll have to look at when you're choosing your seed, or a lot of times the nurseries will have these in the spring or fall. My uncle always buys a few in the spring. tries to keep them alive, but it gets too hot for them as well. I've tried to perennialize them with shade cloth. It just doesn't work. So I do the annual varieties. They'll bloom, which just means they'll bloom the first year that you plant them. There's a lot of really, really beautiful varieties that are biennial, and I just haven't had the space to try any of those, but that just means you'll start them one year and they're not gonna bloom until the next year. So you've got a lot of space that your real estate that you're using there. So I usually stick to the annual varieties, which are Dalmatian and Camelot. I wanna make sure I get this right. Okay, so the Dalmatian, I always get it backwards. The Dalmatian is this, it's Dalmatian peach, and the bells all form on one side of the stem. So my florists actually really like that, it's easier to work with. These are the Camelot, and the bells form all the way around the stem, and they get giant. They can be hard to hydrate when you cut them. That is something I haven't totally figured out, but the more bells that you let open, it seems like the better they last. And if you can get them hydrated and they last a really long time, because even after you cut them, all these little bells that aren't open yet will still open. So they may not be as brightly colored, but they're definitely worth looking into. Every year I get frustrated with starting the seed, but they're worth it. They can also be, their root system is really shallow for how big the plant gets, I think is part of the problem. So they fall over really easily, and like if they get too wet when they're trying to get established, then they'll just all of a sudden die off. So they can be a little tricky, but once you get them established, they're super hardy. Okay, Godetia. Oh man, those pictures are not as pretty as on my computer at home. This is one a lot of people haven't heard of, but it's one of my favorites as well. It's so prolific. They bloom like crazy. And they, again, are day length sensitive. They always bloom for Mother's Day. Always. So I always know that I will have the bells and the Godetia. Everything else is, who knows, but they're a variety of Clarkia, which I think most Clarkia is more of a spike and has little blooms kind of like a snapdragon or something. But the blooms are so vibrant. I wish these pictures, and my husband's computer is not giving it justice either. They're super bright, and they have this like shimmery, sparkly look, and they just have a tropical look to them as well. And people are so fascinated by them because most people have not seen them before. So it's a real conversation starter as well. But you could plant like one plant. I don't pinch them. They're super hardy, and you will get so many stems from one plant. I put hardy to zone 8 on here because that's what she has in the book, but they grow in our area fine. Like the biggest problem I have is the rabbits. They will eat them to the ground. They love them. Okay, so they definitely need support. I don't have a picture of it here, but when you pick them, the blooms are up here. They're super tall. And you should harvest when, let me see if there's one of these. You can kind of see these clumps of these like okra looking things. So that's one stem. And each of these will open into a flower. So you pick when that first one opens up, and then even after you've put it in water, they will continue. These last so long. You just have to pop off the flower that has expired because the bloom doesn't actually last that long. But each one of these will open up, and it's still super colorful, and yeah. So maybe a little education on the part of your customer, but a lot of times they just kind of fall off when they're done blooming anyway. So it's one of my favorites.
When you say hard to zone 8, you mean zone 8 and up? Or
Zone 8 and down, so like warmer, but we're in zone 7. Some people say we're in zone 6B, I think, and I grow them. I've even grown them outside without any problems. So, but I do cover them, I give them a little extra protection, but that is definitely one of my favorites. Okay, poppies. Then you get so many blooms from one plant, and these are a little bit of a different variety than the poppy that you're probably used to seeing. These are not like California poppies or anything like that. These are Italian. They've bred them to be a cut flower. They're still very fragile, but like these are the champagne bubbles are usually the bright colors, and they're a little bit smaller flower, but I have great luck with them lasting in a vase. You pick them just as they're starting to crack open, and I've had them last like a week. People say they're only 2 or 3 days, but and they're so colorful. These are the hummingbird Italian poppies, and this confuses me to death. They are Italian, but they're from Iceland, so they're super hardy. Have you guys ever figured? I don't know. They're from Iceland, but I think the Italians took them and bred them and made them into what we have now. Into these they're just more practical for florists to use. They're super, super popular right now in the floral world. Like, that's what everybody wants in their bouquets. And it's not ideal necessarily, but because they still are fragile. But they're prone to damage if you don't harvest them early. But they are super hardy plants. Like, I have them blooming in my tunnel almost all winter. Just a few blooms, but the plants are unfazed by any kind of cold. I mean, they're from Iceland, so. Some people say that if you sear the ends of poppies, like burn the end or whatever, that they'll last longer. I don't do that. I just put them straight into water. You can store them in like a box, not even in water, for weeks. And then you can rehydrate them. They have all these little hairs on their skins that they say like help suck up the water. I don't really know, but so I harvest them at the crack stage. So they're just a little bulb with just a tiny bit of color, and I collect them in a box, and then when I'm ready to start delivering flowers or like for orders or whatever, I'll hydrate them, and I usually let them open. If you store them dry, they won't keep opening, so they'll store a long time. But
Plugs or seeds?
I do these as plugs. I grow some poppies that they call them like rattle, I don't know, they use the dry pods, and I do those by seed. I'll just like throw them out there and they kind of reseed themselves. But these are expensive plugs, they're expensive seeds, I mean relatively, and they are hard to get started. They grow really slow, but once you have, like, the plug can look terrible, even coming from Farmer Bailey or wherever you order it from, and somehow they come out of it. I've had last year, I don't really know what happened last year. The rabbits literally ate everything in my tunnel down to the ground. Like, there was like just delphinium, everything. We were talking about it being poisonous. They ate all of it. And I was a little stressed about it, but everything just started growing. Even like the poppies, yeah, and I had flowers, so. But they're super productive. Okay, so Lisianthus is one that I don't know that it's always on people's hardy annual list, but they do so much better if they get a cool start. So, I don't actually grow Lisianthus anymore because I've kind of backed away from summer stuff, but they're one of my favorite flowers. I'm growing them this year for Madeline's wedding, but they grow so slow. Like, you start the seeds they tell you to start them around Thanksgiving or so. You keep these plugs alive for like 3 months, and then you plant them out in maybe like March, beginning of March. They do not bloom until like July 1st, middle of June. Some varieties will start blooming middle of June. So they're super slow. They're actually native to Texas, and Mexico, I think, or something like that. But they like the hot, dry, but they appreciate a cool start, and they are pretty frost tolerant as well. But these will get really tall. They have varieties now that are super big flowers. They call them the rose of summer. They look like a rose. There's so many beautiful colors, but they will need some support. This is one that I plant really, really close together. So we'll talk about this a little bit more with snapdragons as well. But we talked about the netting with the 6-inch squares. And so I'll roll out the netting on the ground, and I do 3 plugs per square. Sometimes 2, but mostly 3. So I should maybe draw this out. I tried to do it on my computer, but I ran out of time. So if you have your squares, because this is the same for snapdragons. I do them the same way. So this is basically like your squares of your netting. So you would plant one here, you do a triangle, and then on your next square you do up here. So you alternate. So they end up being about 3 or 4 inches apart. And so you can plant a lot of flowers in a very small space, especially like this. A lot of them I only do 1 plant per square, but Lisianthus is one that I do like that. And it, that's when it's on the ground I use it for spacing. So then I'll leave the netting there, and once they start getting established, I'll just start raising it up. Cause it's on posts, and I don't know if you can really see in this picture. There's some posts right here. This is a whole row of Lisianthus. But you can, like I said, you can fit a ton of flowers, and it makes them get really nice tall stems, especially if I'm in the tunnel. A lot of times I started only planting 2 per square because they get so tall, like reaching, they're just it's impractical. They get too top heavy. So, but they're hardier than a lot of people make them out to be. They really need that cool start. If you don't get them started early, you'll get a lot shorter stems, even planting them close together.
The deer like
I've never had deer. I don't think so. I don't think that I've had issues with deer with them.
And
But I
I'm
don't-
assuming that you can't direct seed them, so I didn't mean to.
Oh, I don't direct seed them, no. I actually, when I do start seeds, I get the pelleted, and which I know is sometimes with organic and stuff like that, but I've done soil blocks with them when I first started, but now if I'm gonna grow them, it's just worth getting the plugs. Because if you factor in your time and effort to keep them alive it's 3 or 4 months at least. You can't go anywhere, you can't do anything. You gotta take care of your baby plants. Dante tried 1 year, I think. She was determined because she loves them. And she was like, never again. She gets plugs from me now. I always give her a few. Okay, so pansies. This is probably one that we should have started with, but I was trying to go in alphabetical order. Everybody has seen a pansy. It's like the classic hardy annual. I think that a lot of people don't realize that you can plant them in the fall and leave them, and then they're gonna bloom like crazy in the spring. A lot of people plant them in the spring because that's when garden centers have them out. But they bloom for me all winter long in the tunnel, and then I now grow them in my heated greenhouse and sell them as edible flowers.
Yep.
But there's varieties that you're gonna actually have a bunch of them for lunch today if you eat in the cafeteria.
Really?
Yes, I brought tons of them.
Oh.
So there's varieties that you can get tall enough for cut flowers. So this is one of the varieties that I sell tons of for cut flowers in the spring. Again, I have a harder time selling color to my florists, but they're just like a little bit of color all winter long. They're really hardy. If you don't want to protect them, they'll be fine as long as they are a little bit established. But it's ideal to plant them in the fall. And people just don't realize that that's when you should plant a lot of flowers. And there's so many different colors. I ordered seeds from Johnny's to get more colorful varieties, and they were back ordered until I just got them last week. So I'm gonna trial and see if I can get some. They may not get tall enough, but we can use them for edible flowers at least. Okay, scabiosa or pincushion flower. This is a favorite of florists because what they get is so much better from me than what they would get from like a wholesaler, which we'll talk about that in the florist class on deciding what to grow. But there's tons of different colors of these as well. There's like dark cranberry colors, there's light blue, there's some that make really cool seed pods. They're very hardy. I've grown them outside with no cover. These are actually scoop variety. They're scoop series. These are bred more for cut flowers. There are varieties that only get, like a foot tall if you want to have them in your garden as like a perennial, because they will perennialize as well. But these are the varieties. These you can't really see in this picture, but like, okay, this row goes all the way down. That's the door. My door is 7 foot tall, and they're almost to the top of the door. They get super tall, and they're very wiry. They get all tangled up. So I grow only the scoop variety because they have bigger blooms. They're not as tangly and wiry. They're just a little bit more practical for me. But they're very prolific. You can cut and cut and cut, and they just keep blooming until mine usually start. It's usually the end of May, beginning of, probably the end of May, I would say. And I'll have them for a couple months. And I've heard people that have them all summer, but I'm usually done with it. I take a little break in the summer, so. But yeah, that one is a fun one to grow. Okay, Rudbeckia. This is one where I was like, I don't know, these are perennials a lot of times. So it's really just, again, how you want to grow them. They can be a perennial for your flower bed, or they can be an annual. A lot of the cut flower varieties are not as hardy. They don't perennialize as well. So I treat them as annuals, but they do bloom at the same time as the perennial ones. Around here, they grow everywhere, like the little, smaller ones. So I grow this variety down here. I should say I don't hardly grow these anymore, but this is Indian Summer, and you can't tell, it looks very similar to the wild variety, right? But they're actually like this big around, like the petals are like very long, and they get very tall. So they're fun just to have. The pollinators love them. Sahara. Yes, this is Sahara. This variety is Sahara. It's very popular with the florists, the browns. I don't understand it, but it is very pretty. There's some real caramely colors to mix. I wish we could get it to bloom in the fall, but I've tried many times. This one over here is Goldilocks. It's kind of like a double, so it's got a few layers of petals. I really like that one. This was the chimney, I can't remember it. Johnny's Seed had it for a long time, and I can't find it anymore. But it's the petals are like little, they're kind of fluted, I guess, but they're like little tubes almost. Yes, yeah. And then a really popular variety that is perennial is Henry Eilers. It perennializes everywhere, I think, and I think it kind of has a similar look to this. And then another really popular one is, I could not kind of picture these, the Rudbeckia triloba, and they're real small. little flowers, and it's very airy. They grow wild a lot of places around here. They don't necessarily perennialize, but they like reseed. So those that we were talking about self-sowing, and they will take over. They can be hard to get rid of once you've got them going. But these, again, are a really slow grower. So starting seeds can be really tricky. I haven't had as much issues with starting seeds. You just have to have a lot of patience. They're just slow. They're not necessarily hard to keep alive, but they just grow really slow. So when I grow them, I've gotten plugs for them as well. And sometimes I'll just start a few seeds because I do really like the colorful. It's fun to have out there with the zinnias and stuff. Okay, snapdragons. This is my favorite. These are all cutting varieties that we're talking about here, but there are so many different varieties of snapdragons. My favorite to grow are the Chantilly variety, and they're like an older variety. This is one of the colors. They don't have the little snapdragon mouth that you can pinch, but they have a really nice, kind of like a faint bubblegummy scent, and it's not something that people have seen before, especially florists. They can't get them really at all. They come in all these different colors. There's like a peach, this orangey pink, a bright pink, white, but I grow like thousands of snapdragons, and you can see my table is just covered with them. I was going to kind of show you, they're very close together. They're planted the same as this, but I don't pinch them unless the weather does it for me. But I get one good solid stem. I go through and cut them pretty much clean, and they will bloom again. That's kind of like when I cut them, it's like they're pinch, and then they'll so I get a couple flushes off of them. One thing with snapdragons is they are also day length sensitive. So the Chantilly bloom a lot earlier than different varieties. So there's a lot of different groups and varieties, and we don't have time to get into all of that. But I try to grow mostly Chantilly, and then I'll grow a few, I'm drawing a blank. The Madam Butterfly are a double, and they bloom later. But if you're curious about all that, I can talk to you a little bit more about it. But they're day length sensitive, so different groups bloom at different day lengths. But the Chantilly you can kind of force to bloom earlier. But they don't like it when it starts getting hot. That's the only thing. Like the one that I talked about, the really hardy story, that they were all just out there. Those are a different variety, and they're a lot more tolerant of things. But yeah, I plant them very close together because you're going to get a lot better stem length. But there's also varieties, again, to just put in your cutting garden or your garden around your house. Okay, stock. Oh man, we're almost out of time. Stock is a fun one. I don't grow it a whole lot because it does not like it if the temps get above 70 degrees. So I've grown it over winter, and it's bloomed like in my tunnel. But I just don't. It's really beautiful and it smells so good, but it's a one-hit wonder. If you pinch it, you're not going to get a bloom. They get very top heavy, and we just get too hot for them. Sweet peas, I love sweet peas. They're a little bit tricky here, but if you give them a lot of water and good support, it seems silly, but if you don't keep them tied up to their trellis, they really get really short stems, and but if you keep them going upright, they'll give you really long stems. But they smell so good. There's lots of colors. They're also day length sensitive, so like there's winter varieties that will bloom in the winter that are really good for like greenhouses. There's spring varieties, so I grow mostly the spring. It has spring in the name. But water is a big key for them. Yarrow is another one that can be a perennial or not. I treat it as an annual most of the time. I would love to get some perennial varieties established, but I just haven't really had a space for them. But you can get it in all different colors. It grows wild. I picked the white, just wild. I think it grows most areas. I cut a lot of that for my florist because everybody likes a white wedding for some reason. But there's like pastel colors, you can get bright colors. It's very easy, it's super hardy, the deer don't like it really. The biggest thing is it can be a little bit tricky to harvest. You wanna make sure that all of your little flowers are open and almost to like a drying phase, and it will last forever. It dries really beautiful as well. Okay, I had to put ranunculus in there as like my honorable mention because I treat them as an annual. Some people call them like hardy annuals. I don't really know what category they fall under, but if you're gonna grow for florists or just yourself, ranunculus are, they like the cool. I think I wrote something. That's the challenge with them, is keeping them cool enough. I can't remember where I wrote that down. But when the soil temp is the main thing to keep them blooming, and as your soil temp starts getting above 75, they just automatically shut down. So I treat them as a hardy annual. I plant them in the fall and overwinter them so that they are established and ready to bloom as soon as the days start getting a little bit warmer. So I can at least get like a month or so of blooms. There's places that they'll bloom for months. And if you have like a heated tunnel or heated greenhouse, you can have them blooming all winter. It just has to stay above about 40 degrees. But these are the butterfly ranunculus. These are top sellers for me. They a lot of times will perennialize. You do have to pay a little fee every year. What do they call that fee? It's oh my goodness, I just forgot. But basically, to the people that have bred them, like a breeder's fee or something. I cannot think of what it's called. But there's so many different colors. And these are the clony ones. They get huge. They're beautiful. So yeah, there's been classes on ranunculus here, but okay. I just kind of put a list here of where I get all my seeds and plugs. Johnny's Selected Seeds is my number one. Sometimes they may be a little bit more expensive, especially if you're buying a small pack, but if you start comparing prices for like 1,000 seeds, even to like GeoSeed or something like that is where you can buy a bulk, it starts not being enough for me. It's just easy to get them, they have great pictures, they do so much research, and I appreciate that, so I am happy to support and pay a little bit extra for my seeds. They also have so much growing information for each variety and seed. So I get most of my seeds from them. Select Seeds and Swallowtail are smaller companies that just kind of, they just sell seeds, but sometimes they have unique ones, and, oh my goodness, I just blanked on the big one that I didn't put on here, that has all the heirloom. Baker. Yes, I didn't put that on there. I don't get a ton of seeds from them just because the varieties that they have a lot of times are more of the like originals or things like that. Like Johnny's has bred a lot of these seeds, not necessarily Johnny's, but to be more productive for growing, for cuts. GeoSeed is great if you like to have the actual name of things. Like, I'm losing my words. I need to take a break. You have to go through like the magazine, and it's literally like looking at a newspaper or something. It's a little bit of a take back in time, but you can get things, everything, anything you can imagine, you can get there. but you do have to get it in bulk. Ball seed, and then Farmer Bailey, again, is where you can get all your plugs. Ball seed is a bigger company, so you do have to have an established business, things like that. I think that's, okay, so I wrote the books up here. I think it's time to be over, but are there any quick questions? Yes?
You said the yarrow, you dry them, is that the best way, or should you put it in the water?
If you want to use it in a bouquet, it's really great for like filler, like to fill out a bouquet. It'll last, and a lot of times the other flowers will die, and I've had people tell me that they take those out and dry them afterwards. Yeah, and I think they're also like a medicinal because I've sold them as edible flowers as well. I sell my edible flowers to like charcuterie places that make the big cheese and nut and fruit platters and stuff. So yeah, that's how.
So, I'm really interested in them as being edible flowers. I know that ranunculus and delphinium are poisonous. What else do you, was on the list that was poisonous?
Okay, so ranunculus are actually not.
Really?
They use them as an edible flower.
Oh.
Delphinium for sure. We talked about this a little bit at the last. It's mostly the seed, but I would not use a delphinium as an edible flower for sure.
Yeah.
So edible flowers that I sell are ranunculus, bachelor buttons, pansies. There's another one. The starship, yes. Sometimes I grow those just for edible flowers. I never grow them as. I really only sell like edible flowers that I can also sell as cut flowers. So a lot of times the edible flowers are super busy. Like the pansies for New Year's, I sold hundreds of pansies. Valentine's Day, I mean, I'll sell every pansy that they'll put them on,
Yeah.
platters or the charcuterie.
I work as a chef, and so I'm more interested in that.
Yeah,
So,
But-
but yeah, I looked it up, like, pretty much most everything, like snapdragons are edible.
yes, that's it, snapdragons. That's the other, I sell a lot of snapdragons because they can use the whole stem, they can use the greenery, they can use each little flower.
Yeah.
So yeah, was there any other
Yarrow.
questions? Yes.
What do you trellis your sweet peas on?
What do I trellis my sweet peas on? So I use like the square metal cattle panels. So we put T-posts down the whole row, and I space sweet peas really close together, like 4 inches. And I like zip tie they might be hog panels, I think is what they call them, hog panels. And it's similar to the Bordenova plastic netting, but it's metal, so it's got more structure to it. And then I just go every few days, honestly, when they're growing, and tie a string to like one of the T-posts, and then I just corral them up to the metal panel. That's actually how I grow my tomatoes too. I rip out sweet peas and we put tomatoes in. I don't sell tomatoes, but it kind of works as a dual. But yeah, the big hog panel, metal hog panels is what you can use that netting as well, but it's pretty flimsy. And they get heavy. Any other questions? Yes.
So all these flowers that you talked about, they're in that cool flowers book.
Most of them. There's a few cool flowers that are not in the book that I have discovered are cool flowers, like Status is one I didn't talk about. It does super well. What's another one that's not? Stock is not in the book, but it's obviously cold hardy if it cannot be above 70 degrees. I think did I write down? Oh, Bee Balm I don't know if that one's in the book or not, but yeah, there's like 40 flowers in there, I think. I didn't even talk about all of them. So that book is very helpful.
Is there greenery that you grow specifically or that you recommend?
So greenery that I grow, I don't grow a ton of greenery because I don't do bouquets really anymore, and they can get greenery like so cheap from wholesalers. But I use the Blue Purim as like a greenery because it has that yellow tint, but it works well. Spring is really hard for greenery, I'll be honest. One year I grew tansy, which they say say can be invasive, but it was amazing. It was not invasive. Have you grown it?
No, I have not.
It's kind of like a fern, and it was I really liked it. But I'm trying to think of anything else. I'll use the sweet pea greenery. Trying to think what else I would use. There's a lot of bushes in the spring. Yeah, basil is a summer one, but in the spring I'll cut like privet, which is also can be invasive bush, but I don't cut the flowers. The greenery holds up for weeks. It's really nice.
How about dill?
Dill is dill is actually a cool flower. It's hardy. It gets huge if you plant it in the fall. I've done that 1 year.
Eucalyptus is good for greenery.
Eucalyptus is a really good one, and it is hardy.
Yeah.
I have had a little chunk of it in my tunnel for a while, and it's fun. I like that one. Not everybody likes eucalyptus, but I do. I'm trying to think of what else. I just don't grow a lot of. I cut greenery from like the ditches and stuff a lot in the spring. It's just easier because in the summer I'll use basil, some, but mint, that's a good one. I've never grown mint.
It's invasive.
Bells of Ireland. That I actually had that on here and I took it off because I've grown it one time and I didn't like it.
It's a
It
good
has
seller.
like you have to process it so much. They're like so Bells of Ireland are actually in this book. They're a big spike flower. They're very hard to get started from seed, and they have these little bells, and they are a greenery, but they do not look like. Oh, you can't see it; it's too tiny. They're like a spike of little bells, but they do not look like this when you grow them. They have these like thorny leaf things on them. You have to cut. You have to cut all of them off to get to this.
Does
So-
that book say if they're edible?
I don't think so.
Okay. Guess
I don't
there's
think
another
so.
book for that sometime.
But there is books for edible flowers, yeah. But yeah. So Bells of Ireland is a fun one. It's like a conversation piece, but
How about amaranth?
it's
Have you tried
way too
amaranth?
much. Amaranth is a summer flower. It's a hot loving thing. So any other questions?
Do you use ferns at all?
Ferns. That's one that I want to get like a perennial type fern established. We have actually some ferns, like wild ferns, out in the woods, like actually on our neighbors that I have cut before. But yeah, I do like ferns, and sometimes Debbie knows I have ferns in the summer, like all around my house. I love them. So yeah, I put them in bouquets for a nice greenery. They hold up forever. Yes.
So I've heard a little bit about conditioning, but I don't know much. I know like daffodils have to be put in water because of their sap before you put them with anything else. Is any details that you would want to share about conditioning when you harvest, how to hydrate?
Okay, so conditioning for cool flowers or hardy annuals, I don't do a lot. A lot of people put like a holding solution or a hydrating solution. I shouldn't say a lot of people. I know that people do that. Most of my flowers, I cut them, they go to my florist, they're in an event that weekend. So I'm not really treating them as much. When I was doing market type bouquets, sometimes I would use a holding solution. Most of these though are fine with just water. Daffodils are an exception for sure. Ranunculus do not actually like anything in their water. They're kind of finicky. From what I have read, they don't like the holding solution and stuff. I've never done really a test. I just use water for them, and they last a really long time. There was one yarrow you have to be kind of careful with. I consider it a dirty flower. It will make your water really gross. So a lot of times will treat that with they call them CBBN tablets, I think, and they're kind of like a bleach. Yeah, they're like a little chlorine tablet. So and all my summer flowers, I drop one of those in because zinnias, sunflowers, they all have these little hairs on their stems and they just get the water so nasty. So I'll always put that. Rudbeckia is one that I would treat. Rudbeckia can be a challenge to hydrate. But yeah, for the most part, just water and cool. Keeping them cool letting them hydrate. Giving them a few hours in water after you've picked them before you handle them is ideal, at least, or I usually try overnight. So with florists, all my florist sales, I usually pick for like 2 days, and then I deliver it, and they use it for the weekend. Any other questions? It's cold in here. Everyone take a second, put my jacket on. Yeah.
I just have a question, like when you grow in New York and it gets hotter, the temperatures that you're saying, but it's growing in shade,
Uh-huh.
and it did really well. But do you shade any of your flowers or?
So now that I have a tunnel, I put shade cloth, actually last year I never took shade cloth off even through the winter, and they did great. I've replaced my plastic this year, so I don't have the shade cloth on. But yes, I put shade cloth on probably like the beginning of March to try to keep the soil as cool. And so shade cloth, and then I try to keep them watered. I water from a cistern that's underground, and I feel like the cold water keeps their roots and stuff cooler. Because that's the part that feels the temperature, basically.
And have you missed any also, or?
I don't miss anything. I don't wanna, you can get damage to petals and things like that. So I don't really, I ground water, we foliar feed some. I don't really treat the flowers even after I cut them, besides just a drink of water from the stem. So, some like woody things, like if I'm cutting from bushes, I'll do, I like a hydrating solution. But even, I don't know if I do that often. I should practice what I preach. Yeah.
How do you transport them to keep them all nice and when you're,
Are you gonna come to this afternoon?
okay, so you'll fill
Yes.
in, yeah.
We're gonna cover all the florist stuff before we get there. Yeah, we're gonna talk about florists.
Okay.
How to transport and things like that. If I don't answer your question, remind me. Any other questions? I can talk about flowers forever, but we got 2 more hours this afternoon, so